guys, welcome to the Grow and Learn podcast. Welcome to everybody watching on Heal and Learn. Today we're going to be talking about movies. Aren't I surprising you every day? Today I'm bringing Joe Lalonde. Joseph Lalonde is his full name, and he's a leadership coach using a very interesting technique, using movies to teach people leadership skills, leadership qualities. I'm welcoming Joe. Hello.
Hi, Zarina. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to share with you and the audience about the power of movies to influence us in a positive light. So often we hear that movies are a negative thing and that we need to get rid of it. When I first started my personal development journey, it was, like all entertainment was bad and you had to get rid of the movies and music and TV shows that you watch. And I've kind of flipped that paradigm on its head and said, wait, no, there's actually good things that you can take away from the movies.
I love that. Thank you for that, because I was just sharing with you, I stopped watching movies since I realized how much they're programming and how many encoded messages there are there. So I'm in an attempt to protect myself from mind programming. I kind of stopped watching movies, apart from something really big that comes out. But yeah, I want to know how you switch this, what the learnings are, everything. But let's start from the beginning. You wrote a book called Real Leadership. We can see it on your t-shirt.
Yep.
Can you show us the book?
Yeah, so here's the book cover. I'm going to kind of slowly bring it up.
Discovering the Hidden Leadership. Okay, so
that's the book cover.
So just before we start, the book is available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and local bookstores around Michigan where you're based?
Yes, that is correct.
Cool. So what's in the book and why did you write a book?
So let me start with the why behind it. Like I mentioned earlier, when I first started out in the leadership, personal development arena, a lot of the talk was movies are bad, entertainment's bad. There's better ways to spend your time. I think Zig Ziglar was the one that coined the term automobile university. And that was listening to positive, uplifting messages on your commute to work. And I took that to heart. And we cut our cable, we cut movies, TV shows. I even stopped listening to music because I wanted to get better. And then I felt like something was missing in my life. And then so I started searching and I discovered that movies were actually a wealth of knowledge if we allowed them to. There's several books that I started to read that helped me understand that I could unlock more of my potential by watching movies. It sounds counterintuitive, but through the last, 15 years, I've looked at movies in a different way and I've helped other people look at it a different way through my blog and through the book. So in the book, I talked to other leaders. I don't know, you may have heard of guys like Brian Dodd, John Ramstead. So John Ramstead, he was a former Top Gun pilot. And, he shared his experience about watching movies and growing from them. I've talked to former pastors who have used movies to teach lessons. I even talked to movie industry professionals such as David Hayter, who was the writer for the first X-Men movie. And they all shared unique personal stories of how movies shaped and changed their lives. And that's what I captured in the book. And then I use those lessons and my personal experience to help you understand how you can do it in your life.
Okay. Let's start with your personal experiences then. Maybe we can start unpacking a bit of the content of the book. What is it that you experienced in terms of learnings, and what happened in your life when you started digging into this wealth of knowledge, when you realized the potential in movies?
Yeah, so, I kind of, I started thinking back to like my youth group experience days and how the leaders in the youth group would teach biblical lessons. And a lot of them would actually use the movies. Star Wars was a huge one. One of the leaders was a huge Star Wars fan. And, he showed how taught like the power of personal belief, how working together helped you become a stronger person, and accomplish things. And so those things started to build. And, unfortunately, I let those things go. Then I started watching movies in that new light again. And, I just watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3 um, this weekend as we record. And so many different lessons stood out to me. Yeah, so spoiler alert, if you're going to go see Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and you haven't, fast forward this about 2 minutes. But like the most powerful thing that came to me was there's a character in Guardians of the Galaxy called Drax the Destroyer. He's an alien, and through the three movies, he would just go and want to kill people or kill things because that was how he dealt with problems. But by the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movie, one of the characters was like, Drax, everybody called you Drax the Destroyer, but I don't think that's your real name. I think you're Drax the Daddy. Sounds silly, but he found this family where he was able to care for them. And he didn't have to be violent. He didn't have to be mean. He didn't have to be angry, but he could take care of people using the strengths that he had. So that's just a really recent experience with a movie that I think, can show us that we label people the wrong way. We tell people that they're dumb, or that they don't get the job done right, or that they don't have the skills necessary. A lot of times we're just looking at people the wrong way. We're not pulling out those skills. We're not encouraging what's really inside of them. We're just looking at, like, for Drax, the actor that plays him is David Batista, which was a former wrestler. So he's this big hulking guy, massive biceps, and he just looks scary and like he would destroy things. And that's what we do. We look at people and we label them without getting to know them. So, my encouragement for the readers of my blog with the latest Real Leadership post was to, look at people for who they really are and not just their external looks, and don't give them negative labels. Because as we've seen through the previous Guardians of the Galaxy movies, Drax lived that out. He went and destroyed things. But by the end of Volume 3, he was taking care of these kids that needed a family, that needed a father figure.
Okay. So when you coach people, or do you coach people actually?
I do.
Yeah. So when you coach people on leadership and you bring up these stories or ask them to watch a certain movie, is that what you're doing actually? Because I'm assuming here.
So I've coached a few people, and that's what I'm trying to do. And, sometimes people look at you weird and go, why do you want me to watch a movie? Until I help them understand how to pull these lessons out, how to watch and go, okay, this happened in the movie. How can I apply it to my leadership or my personal life?
Okay. And so when they see this movie and when they grasp it, do you find this is enough for them to act differently, or does a simple realization help them change their behaviors, their attitudes? Because usually a reprogramming goes a step further, or do you find something else in your experience?
I find it's a bit of both. Sometimes, helping them understand like what's going on and what they can do better helps them to take that first step. And other times there's a little bit of prodding and pushing that needs to happen, and further conditioning to get them to take action.
Mm-hmm. Do you recommend the movies depending on their situation?
Yeah, well, I take a look and I go, okay, what are they going through? And then I go, what movies have I seen that deal with those situations? Sports movies are huge. They're easy to grasp. They deal with, not only are they movies, they deal with sports, which so many people love and adore, especially in America. We love our football movies, we love our baseball movies. Football movies, Rudy. Um, Baseball movies, Moneyball. There, Big George Foreman just came out, which is a boxing movie, and depending on what they're going through, I just help them take a look at different movies to see what they can do and improve.
Mhm. Okay, and so why is it called real leadership? Real because of reels, right? Like video
Yeah,
reels. But
yeah. So
why did you? Yeah, why the focus on leadership specifically?
so uh, as I started going into personal development, it was like I read a book called 48 Days to the Work You Love by Dan Miller. And he was like, what are your past experiences? What can you draw on? What do you know better than someone else? And I started looking through my past experiences, and one of the things that I had done was being a youth leader for our church. So every week I was helping our lead youth pastor develop sermons, helping him set up, tear down, helping him deal with student issues. And I'm like, I've got a good idea about this leadership thing. And so that's when I began talking about just leadership. And like I mentioned earlier, later on, I was like, movies are a good tool to teach. And that's when it shifted to the real leadership. And it was kind of it's a play on real, REAL. Like, so you want to be a real leader? Now I want you to be a real, REEL leader.
Yeah, very cool. So what else is in the book? Do you talk about specific movies? Do you what is the yeah, what's in the book?
Yeah, so I talk about specific movies. I talk about first. I start talking about the history of movies and leadership. Move to how movies can actually be a window to worlds that we've never experienced personally. I mean, I've never been a boxer, but in Big George Foreman, I got to understand what it took for him to become a boxer. Never would happen to me, but I don't think I'd ever box anybody. But I was able to put myself in a different place, and through that, learn from George Foreman, the boxer's experience. Um, and I also talk about how movies are the modern day fables. Years ago, we used to tell stories, The Rabbit and the Hare, Humpty Dumpty,
Mhm.
and these stories taught us valuable life lessons. Now, if we watch movies, they're teaching us valuable life lessons if we allow them to. And I touch on everything from flipping through the book. I use Patrick Lencioni, if you know who he is. He's written some great business books, leadership fables. He used to be a screenwriter, and he talked about how great stories need a hook. And so I talk about how leaders need a hook to get people to grab onto the vision that the leader is casting.
Mhm.
Or there's how there can be a lot of fear in leadership because as a leader you're leading people into the unknown. And so I talked to a leader who shared about overcoming fear. Or there's also how you have to gain mastery over yourself. Because if you can't master yourself, your feelings, your thoughts, how are you ever going to direct somebody else without without really messing things up? Um, if you've ever been in the presence of a leader who doesn't have control of themselves, bad things happen. I still recall, this was probably 10, 12 years ago. I worked for a company where the leader would just fly off the hook or handle unhinged. And he'd yell at employees without having the full story. One time our shipping manager had shipped out a product, and the customer said they had never received it. The shipping company said it was delivered. The owner brought the employee into his office, yelled at him from his office, down the hallway, past multiple offices, past the open office, and back onto the production floor. And come to find out, the company had received it, but the receiver at the customer's company had misplaced it. So our owner
I've
was
been a witness of many such stories as well.
so you know
From
our owner was berating this employee because he had lost control of himself without getting the full story. And when you learn to, there, what movie was it? Um, Looking through. Yeah, so uh, a leadership podcaster named Skip Pritchard talked about learning how to master your feelings and emotions through the movie As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson. Um, and he just used the example of Nicholson's character and how he wanted to become a better leader who inspired others, and that he had to master himself throughout that movie to get to that point. So there's a lot of stories in here, and then there's like the practical section of how to actually do it.
and how do you actually do it?
So you do it by, once again, it's going to be a pun. I'm going to say watching movies with a real leader mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And you go in with an open mind. You take a look. You take a look at it rather than entertainment. You look at it as like a crash course in leadership. Uh, you know, in my book, I use the example of Brian Dodd, who's a friend of mine, and he used the movie Moneyball to teach the lesson. So he showed a scene of the movie Moneyball starring Brad Pitt, going into a parking garage with a person called Peter Brand, and they had a conversation about the medieval thinking in baseball, because in Moneyball, it was a story of a coach who changed the way baseball was done. It used to be you looked for the best talent. He decided to look for the best talent in specific areas that all work together. So when you got the right people on the right team, it made the best team rather than having individual best players. So he showed this clip, and then Brian asked the business leaders in the presentation to tell him every single leadership lesson that they saw in the movie. They're like, Brian, I didn't see anything. And then Brian broke it down. He's like, guys, listen, there were actually at least 10 leadership lessons in this small clip that you just watched. And like I do with my coaching clients, he then walked them through each lesson as he watched them in the movie. So he replayed it. He's like, all right, this section here, this is this leadership lesson. Then this is this leadership lesson. So it's this process of examining movies in a new and different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your favorite, what are your top 3 movies of all times?
Okay, the first one is going to be Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, which is the second movie in this original trilogy. The second one, it's a lesser known movie. It was absolutely fantastic in my mind. It was called Baby Driver. It was about a guy who was like a getaway driver. He had tinnitus, and so he had to always listen to music to get the ringing out of his ears. It was just, the cinematography was great, but what I absolutely loved about it was the musical score. It's very similar to what the Guardians of the Galaxy did. It was all about the music in that one.
But what was the lesson of it?
The lesson in Baby Driver.
Yeah.
Let me. There were so many. Just a second. Let's. Oh, come on. Where are you? Should have had this up. um,
You can't know what I'm going to ask you, so.
I know. Um, you know, um,
If you can't find it, it's okay. But the thing is, do you actually have descriptions or lessons learned in your blog?
I do. So here's I write real leadership lessons every Monday on my blog. That's at jmlalonde.com. And Wednesdays and Fridays are general leadership lessons. So I just pulled it up on my website. One of the lessons I pulled out was that people typically have a reason for what they do. Um, Bats was a character in the movie, and he questioned why Baby, who was the driver, was always listening to music. He's like, get those headphones out of your ears and listen to people around you. Like I said, Baby had tinnitus, so he had this ringing in his ears. The only way for him to control that was to have headphones in and to listen to music. So a lot of times we look at people and go, why are they doing this? They're not doing things the way I want them to or the way I think they should be done. But they have a very specific reason typically for doing what they do.
Yeah. All right. So I'm showing some of the article titles in your blog, jmlalonde.com. Quite interesting titles here. For example, 6 ways to inspire your team to achieve more. And then you have how to overcome imposter syndrome as a leader, 4 leadership practices for an inclusive workspace. So guys, head on to this blog. It seems very interesting. Something that caught my attention. I also love Zig Ziglar, and you started by quoting him. And here's a quote that you have posted, which is, people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. I really love this one.
It's a good one because everybody's like, well, why do you read motivational content, or why do you write it? And it's because we need a constant refreshing of that motivation. We need to continue to renew our minds and remind ourselves of what we're doing and why we're doing it and who we're doing it for.
So why do you think that movies are a better way or the best way to learn leadership lessons?
I don't know if I'd necessarily say it's the best way. I'd say it's a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
And it reaches a bunch of different people. You talk to the average person out on the street. So say you're running a business, you talk to the employees that you're leading. And what did they do this past weekend? There's a good chance they went to the movie theater and watched a movie. So if you're understanding the lessons that are being presented in the movies, you can be like, hey, Bill, yeah, I went and seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2 this weekend. Here's what I saw in the movie. And you can help your people start to understand what they can see in movies differently rather than just that entertainment aspect.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Well, that gives a very different way of looking at leadership and how you can engage with your teams, anybody who's leading a team. Very interesting topic. So check out the book Real Leadership by Joseph Lalonde on Amazon, local bookstores, and Barnes and Noble. Or go to his blog, jmlalonde.com. What is something else that you would like to share that I haven't asked you? I always ask my guests. I'm sure that I've missed something that they really want to spit out. And then if I say bye, they're missing the chance. So what have I missed today?
I think you've hit on a lot of good things, Zarina. The one thing I would encourage you encourage your listeners is to start thinking differently about the entertainment. You don't have to, entertainment isn't strictly just to have fun or to enjoy yourselves. Entertainment can actually be a personal development tool that you can continue to learn and grow from.
Thank you. It was a pleasure having you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Grow and Learn. We hope that you found our podcast informative, engaging, and inspiring. Our mission is to help you keep growing and learning, and we hope that our conversations and insights have provided you with practical advice and useful perspectives. If you're looking for personalized support and guidance to help you achieve your personal or professional growth objectives, I offer a range of services to help. As a trusted management partner and mentor, I work with businesses in the process of transformation, looking for new streams of business, as well as M&A. With an extensive professional network of experts and mentors, I can bring on board the right person or team based on the specific needs of the company I'm working with. To learn more about the services I offer and how I can help you achieve your goals, visit my website at growandlearn.org. You can also reach out to me via email or social media. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode of Grow and Learn, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us, and it helps us to continue to create content that is relevant and valuable to our listeners. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights and perspectives with you in the future.